I'm CK, and tonight's Tools and Techniques video is about something I never thought was going to be that important to me on my workbench, and you've seen me use it if you've looked at some of my videos. You've seen me use these tools relatively often, and it's the simple tweezer. Tweezers can really help with a ton of stuff. So let's go over to my workbench and we'll look at a variety of different types of tweezers that you might not have seen. Some you obviously have. And then we'll look at how we use them and how they can really help in an electronics workshop or a workshop in general, but we're focusing on electronics tonight. So here's a variety of tweezers. We'll start with probably what you should get first if you don't have them is a collection of 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, I think 12 or 13 different tweezers with different tips. This is the general purpose one. I use this all the time. But as important as this one is this one, which is a little bent and very sharp nose. These are really useful for holding a surface mount part, positioning it while you're soldering it. If you look at the video I did of speakers a couple of days ago that had some LED surface mounts, if I didn't have these, I could never have manipulated them. So this is a 12-pack. I'll put a link to the product page on Amazon that I got this from. I think there were $29 for all 12. They're ESD coded, like that really matters for most of us hobbyists, but it's important to have anyway. And you'll use all these. I mean, there's long ones with big wide grippers and real sharp pointy ones. You'll use these all the time. So that's general tweezers. Now we'll look at some of the specialty ones. First is just in general locking tweezers. What can you do with locking tweezers that is better than doing it by hand? Well, I'll show you one thing. So here's two things actually we can look at for tweezers. First, when you have a bunch of small components, you use your tweezers to pull one out. Then you're not rummaging around, banging things around. So when you want to, and let me zoom in a little bit here, you have an IC socket or a plain IC and you want to put it on the board and solder it. Now there's a lot of things you can do to try and hold it in place, and if it's a big board it's more of a challenge. But the easiest thing to do is just get a pair of locking tweezers, tweeze the back, tweeze the middle, and then it's not going anywhere. It's flat on the board and you can do whatever you want. Set it down and solder to your heart's content without having to worry about the socket coming loose, it not being flat on the board. And that, more than anything else, is the advantage of locking tweezers. And yeah, we've got straight ones, we've got angle tip ones, and this is one that you may want to consider also. These are, and I've got a set of 3 of these are ceramic. So first off, they're non-conductive of electricity, but almost as important, they're non-conductive of heat. So when you put the iron up against it, you're not going to bleed off a bunch of heat. One thing that can be a challenge with metal tweezers is if they're very close to a component and you're soldering, they will act as a heat sink and pull some of the heat away from the iron and your work. These ceramics will not. I've got, and again, these came in a set of 3. I'll try and remember to put them in the description. Then of course we've got longer ones for when you have a large circuit board and you want to go deeper. The other thing that we have are vinyl or plastic coated ones for sensitive surfaces. Now, one thing I do want to point out, let me see if I can focus in on this. If you look here, let me get this thing to focus. These tweezers, if you look at these tweezers, you can see a problem, and these were an inexpensive pair, and I shouldn't have scrimped on the money. You'll notice they don't meet, and they will just frustrate the heck out of you. So these are pretty much junk, where if you look at these are very good, and they close very tightly and solidly. So those are vinyl, polyvinyl coated ones. Here's another style. These have wooden grips. I'm not real sure why, but some people like them. This is another thing that some people swear by. I've never been able to use them quite the way I would hope to. Get my camera centered. So it's two pairs of tweezers, locking tweezers, mounted on a bar. They are meant to be able to help you solder two pieces of wire together, for example. And while it's good in theory, I've never been able to get them to work well for me, but that's my problem. You'll probably have no issues with that. However, when we think about wire in general, I'm going to pause the camera for a second to get another prop out here. Let's say we're working on something like this amplifier. And we're working inside. Maybe we're hooking this wire in there, putting this wire there, and it's deep. It's a couple of inches deep in there. And you've got your soldering iron in one hand and solder in the other, and the wire's all moving around. Well, what you can do with tweezers is, say you have your little loop in the wire, and you hook it on there, and then you just take a pair of locking tweezers and grip the wire and just let it hang. And that keeps enough tension on the wire so that it's not going to go anywhere. You can safely go in and solder without having to say, the wire moved, the wire danced out of the way. So that is, I use them when I'm working on something that's got a little depth, or actually anytime I'm working with wire, quite frankly. I do that quite a bit, is just put the wire on the terminal, hang a pair of locking tweezers off it to give it a little tension, and it works very wonderfully for that. The other thing that in enclosures like this, tweezers are very handy for. Say I have to rework over here, I want to change the value of this resistor. Can you see that? Can you see what I'm doing? Yeah. I want to change the value of this resistor. Well, this wire is in the way, and when I'm desoldering, when I've got the iron in there and the barrel of the iron is right in here, I don't want to burn this wire, so obviously taking a pair of tweezers and pulling it off to the side works really well. I also have small clamps that I use for that too, but that's a subject for another video. So that's just some of the things you can do with tweezers, and the different styles. I'll link to a bunch of them, and you see me, if you look at my other videos, you see me working with tweezers a lot. So you may not have ever thought about them, but a good complete set of tweezers is going to make your assembly life and management life very, very much nicer. So think about getting them. Thanks for watching.